This here is the latest gas pistol to hit the gel ball market from RPM Tech Shop and Poseidon. And out of the box, this thing absolutely slaps.
Is
that the door frame? Oh, one outside. One, yeah. He's down.
I can't be mixing it with the vibe. 40 and 50 is screaming the time. Why do you want me to fall like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I don't know. Keep bitches and thinking I'm blind. Cross on my crosses and dot on my eyes. Done with your efforts, I'm dealing with pressures. I know it's a lesson, that's word of the wise.
Now, as a really quick bit of context before I get into the review, RPM and Poseidon have been bringing products out to the gel ball market for a little while now. Last year, we saw the arrival of their two gas pistols, their entries into the market, the Evo and the Shark. Essentially, these two pistols are kind of the same as each other. But what was actually interesting about it and excites me the most is the innovation that came with it. One of those biggest features, and always excites me, is the fact that there is an integrated adjustable hop-up machined into that inner barrel. So you don't need to have some funky kind of muzzle device to get a hop-up working with your gel blaster. That's pretty cool, right? Inside, there is a rubber loading arm. So if you're not familiar with gas blowbacks and kind of how most of them work, there's a little loading arm that comes through when the slide cycles, and that pushes the gel, from the magazine up into the chamber. So they rubberize that to make it softer and gentler on those gels to help reduce the limit of them getting smashed, getting sliced, and so on. So that was really thoughtful. And then to extend upon that, they also have rubber magazine lips on their magazines. Hopefully you can see the kind of flex there. Now, that again was to help with, getting gels through and kind of balancing that out and not slicing them. But as a bonus, it means if you do drop your magazine by accident, it's kind of inevitable. Very unlikely you're gonna break the mag if it happens to land lips first. So that's pretty cool as well. And on top of that, they've also launched some independent products. So one, which you may have heard of, is the Stormbreaker M4 magazine adapter. So that's for Glocks or Glock style gel blasters. And initially, early days, I think they had some feeding issues, but that's all being resolved. And this product is fantastic. Like, I will do a separate video on this. This is very cool. And one of the other ones, which in my mind was a no-brainer, and I'm so happy they did it, is they took the idea of the integrated hop-up machined into the barrel and extended that out for 500 millimeters, right? So this here is intended to be installed in your own projects, your AEGs, HPA, whatever, and you cut the barrel down. So that then gives you an integrated hop-up. Now, I will do a whole separate video on this and the giveaway, so make sure you're subscribed and follow me on Instagram so that when that drops and when that's coming, you'll be able to kind of get in the mix and find out about that. So that brings us to now, where we have this new pistol, the Orion, which for all intents and purposes is meant to be the updated, upgraded version of these previous pistols. And what's crazy about it is this is nearly $200 cheaper than the Evo and the Shark. $200. And there hasn't been any sacrifice on the build quality, the materials, or anything like that. And I'll explain why it's cheaper a little bit later on. But that is really cool. So if you're looking to get into the market and grab a pistol, it means you can kind of get the latest, greatest version and not be, forking out an arm and a leg, which is pretty cool. Now, I've run the Evos and the Sharks, thrashed them for a year, and I was really keen to pick this one up and kind of play around with it. So I'll be able to take you through the details of what's changed, the new stuff, how it performs. It might get a little bit lengthy, so grab a coffee or whatever and sit back and have a listen in. Now, in terms of versions, there are essentially two versions or sizes that are available for the Orion. This here is the Orion 2, and there is an Orion 3, which is slightly longer. Now, if you're familiar with Glocks, because this is essentially a Gucci Glock, this is basically your 18/17 size, like your standard. And then the Orion 3 is actually kind of a Glock 34-35 length, so it's a little bit longer. The one thing just to keep in mind is this is my pistol, so I have gone ahead and I've already put an RMR and an RMR plate on there. Those are extra, they do not come with the pistol at all. And I've already changed the rear iron sights, which actually do come in the box, so that's really cool as well. Now, in terms of colors, there aren't as many colors as there were available with the Sharks. So there's basically this gold slide and a black slide, and then there's a black frame and a tan frame. So they're doing it as like gold and black and black, and gold and tan. They're all the options available for you. The packaging is very basic. This is not an unboxing video, so I'm not gonna do that in front of you. But essentially you get your pistol, again, without the RMR or the RMR plate. You actually get these pair of irons as an option to install. So it's included in the box. When you first pull your pistol out, it'll have these weird Cyclops optic or iron on it. So I change it because I absolutely hate them. And you get one magazine. All right, now if you have an Evo or a Shark, or you've fiddled with them in the past, this magazine design is slightly updated, but still cross-compatible. You also get, for whatever reason, this red or orange muzzle tip, which doesn't thread in, so don't know why they did that. And you also get this manual. Now, I don't really care much for manuals, but what I do appreciate about this is one of the kind of pages talks about how to adjust the hop up and how you should adjust it based on the trajectory of the gels that you're seeing. So that's pretty handy if you're not kind of experienced with it, or for newbies or whatever else. But you'll see, like, it shows you how to load the pistol, and it also has kind of a map of all the different parts if you need to get a replacement part. So that's pretty cool as well. I mentioned before a couple of like really innovative things that RPM and Poseidon have put into their gel ball products. So I want to take a couple minutes just to kind of talk through that and show you how they work. And keep in mind, like these are also on the older models. So if you have an Evo, if you have a Shark, as far as I can tell, nothing's changed. So there's nothing new, you're not missing out on anything there. So there's four things. One is the integrated hop up. There's also the ice pick system, which I haven't mentioned yet, the magazine design, and those rubberized components. So let's just quickly start with the hop up. So integrated hop up is sitting on that inner barrel. So in order to adjust it, you do need to take that barrel out. So that's probably the one drawback, but it is a very clean solution. So all you need to do is rack your slide, remove your slide, remove your guide rod, and then take the barrel housing out as well. So what we have here is the inner and outer barrel. Remove the inner barrel, and this here is that whole mechanism that we are looking to adjust. Now, when I received my Orion, there was this very high-tech plumbing tape wrapped around it. The whole reason that that is there is this system is adjusted by sliding a metal collar back and forth. And being a mechanical system, if you don't kind of secure that, it can start walking and start changing how that hop-up is applied. So I'll remove that just so you can see how this works. All right, so you can see that's that metal collar, and you can see the plastic tongue as well. So that plastic tongue, it's this injection molded plastic. It can be removed, swapped, changed, especially if you break it or lose it. And last I heard, RPM and Poseidon are working on some different hop-up profiles. And that's pretty important, especially for that other barrel, the external one that you can use, which we'll talk about later. That's how that works. I won't put the tape back on, it's a waste of time for you. But I will talk about the ice pick system. So I'm not going to go and demonstrate this because there are videos that show how it works. I'll put the links below if I can. But essentially, if you didn't know, with gas systems, as you kind of continue to release gas out of the magazine, it starts to cool down, like the magazine cools down. As that magazine gets colder, it actually becomes less efficient because it starts cooling the gas as well. So I don't know what black magic has been used in the designs of these systems, but essentially Poseidon has this proprietary ice pick system that is inside their kind of the gas system that they have in their pistols. And what that does is it negates the effect of cooling. Again, I don't know how it works. I'm sure there's some technical expert that can explain how it works. But essentially what it means is if you've, especially if you've used like gas pistols and whatnot, when you're spamming that trigger really hard, or if you've gone through a few a magazine multiple times in a very short period, it gets very cold, your pistol stops cycling correctly, you'll probably see a drop off in FPS, it starts to get very wacky very quickly. this ice pick system prevents that from happening. That's all I can say on it. Like the demonstrations I've seen from Poseidon, they put these magazines in a freezer, they put it into their pistol, and it still fires just fine. So I don't know how it works, but it's very cool. I've noticed that, you know, with the Evo, and look, my comparison point is things like P1s, some people's high kappas and whatnot. The difference is, you know, I can go through those magazines all day and it just continues to cycle, it continues to operate as it should, which is very, very cool as well. Onto the magazine designs. I've already mentioned there's rubber mag lips, you know, that is what it is. But what is interesting about the Poseidon magazines in comparison to, say, something like a high kappa, is you'll see that the feeding channel is a different shape. The Poseidon magazine is a constant width all the way down, whereas your high kappa, and this is also present in other Glock mags, is actually a smaller size at the top and then opens up into a little window where you feed your gels in. Now, look, the short story is that that is a byproduct of it being an airsoft product that's been adapted. But the problem it creates with gels is that when you load past that port, the edges of that little window can start slicing your gels. Doesn't always happen, but it can happen. Now, the way Poseidon gets around that is they have a wider port that you just take your speed loader in and you can just load your gels straight in, right? So it's pretty, I mean, it's smart. It seems pretty obvious as well once you kind of see how it works. The advantage is you can actually load your magazine all the way to the bottom and you do not have to worry about it getting sliced. And it also means if you've used pistols before, when you're getting that double stack on the way down, if you miss a hole, like if it goes, you know, 2 on one side and then across, you can actually just like insert another one straight in and it fixes that. So that's very cool as well. And the last part, as I've said, is those rubberized components. So again, mag lips and again on that nozzle in that gas system. So the loading arm here is rubber. So it is a lot gentler on gels. Like I've been able to run glows, which are very, very soft through that pistol and they didn't shatter. So that was, I mean, that's really cool. I haven't played around too much with it, but just keep that in mind. Like a lot of these other pistols on the market don't have those considerations in them. All right, so what has actually changed? What's been upgraded and updated, right, from between the Orion and the Evos and the Sharks? First thing, most importantly, especially from a performance point of view, is the gas system is more efficient. I believe it's probably a combination between some updates to the magazine and some changes as to what's going on inside the piston and whatnot as well. So the magazine is still compatible with an Evo, right, and a Shark. So if you have those pistols and you get this magazine, it will work. But what's changed is there's something different about the angles that are happening up here with the feed lips and also with, you know, your little seal. So that is now better. I don't know if anything has changed with the knocker valve, whether it's like a high flow valve or anything like that. But I do know that, look, the Orion hands down cycles way faster than the Evos. If you take this magazine and you put it into an Evo, it seems as though it cycles faster. But what's interesting about that is the other change that has happened in the Orion, right, is that this has a stronger recoil spring. So this is cycling faster than the Evos. It has potentially more weight, especially once you get, you know, optics and whatnot on there, and it has a stronger recoil spring. So there's obviously something going right, you know, with these changes. And then on top of that, the BBU has changed. So talking to RPM, apparently that is like a proprietary, like, you know, like an updated design. They've kind of researched it and changed what they wanted to change. Keep in mind, no matter what, it would have had to have changed anyway because the RMR screws straight down into where that BBU is. So it never would have been able to stay the same as the Evo and whatnot anyway. There is, you'll notice inside, there are some orange switches at the back there at the top. That is actually where the semi and full auto switch has been moved to. So make no mistake, you know, the Evos and the Sharks had the fun switch on the slide. The Orion still has the same fun switch. It's just inside now. So it's actually a lot cleaner. So two other things, obviously just mentioning that RMR again, the RMR cutout is there. You couldn't install an RMR onto these other slides before. The only way to do that is to use the stupid Ironside adapter plate thing. And it just puts it all in the wrong places. So that's pretty cool. I'm really glad they added that because it's like the only thing I've wanted to add to the pistol for a long time. But the other issue that was present in the Evos and the Sharks, but is no longer present in the Orions, was there was a time where if you had already cocked your Evo or your Shark and then inserted a magazine, there's a very good chance that the hammer is not seated correctly against the knocker valve. And so what that would lead to is like it wouldn't fire properly. It would cause an issue when you did it. Not a big deal, like you kind of rarely run into it, but that is being completely solved and removed. I don't run into that issue with the Orion anymore at all, which is very good. There's some pretty obvious changes, right? So side by side, Orion, Evo, you'll see that the frame is different. They're very similar, but it is actually different. And this brings me back to the fact that this one, the Orion, is nearly $200 cheaper. So essentially what happened, the short version is the old frames, these here are actually officially licensed P80 frames. So, if you're not kind of aware of it, it's a frame you can use to build a Glock in real steel terms. But that licensing costs a lot of money. And to be perfectly honest, not for a lot of gain. I think it's a love and hate frame that's sitting there. So to reduce that cost without having to sacrifice materials and that sort of stuff, essentially they decided, let's just build a brand new frame, their own design. So this is an RPM Poseidon frame that has been designed for the Orion. And they made all these changes, right? Where it's kind of like the best of all worlds. The stippling is a little bit less aggressive, which is quite nice because I think the P80 was a little bit overboard. They've added the indexing marks. So as you grip your pistol, you have these marks for your thumb. They've added the beaver tail to the rear. Now that's especially good for people with bigger hands or people trying to get a higher grip on the pistol. If you've never experienced it, essentially what can happen with an incorrectly shaped frame is that slide can start to interact with your hand. So it can bite you or you can stop it from cycling. It's not a good time at all. So they've added that, which is very cool. And the bottom of the grip actually is flared. So you'll see that, and you'll see that there's no some flared magwells have like this line that stops it from feeding the magazine. But the fact they've added that is very cool. It makes it easier to feed a magazine in without having to add a magazine well. So really thoughtful design. I absolutely love the new design. When you feel the difference of these two, hands down, this is the winner. Anyone that kind of has picked up these pistols that I've spoken to loves the new shape, loves how it feels in their hands. I think probably the one person that would object to that is, I saw the X-Force review as well. And I think it was Scott on there was saying, he prefers something that's a little bit rougher on the grip. So if you need to change it, go and stipple it yourself. The other standout point, other than the fun switch being gone, is, and this is a little hard to show on camera, but the Evos and the Sharks actually had these extended magazine releases. Let's see if I can kind of like contrast that for you. Right, so that would stick out a little bit. And it is one of those love or hate upgrades as far as I can tell. Some people love to have them, some people don't. But these were just no choice, you have it installed on your pistol. At first I thought it was great, until I realized that as you grip your pistol, there can be a number of times where you actually bump that and your magazine comes out. So they've done away with that, right? It's, again, let's see if I can kind of show that to you, right? There's not much of a rise on that magazine release at all. So it's a lot more comfortable now. So again, for me, as far as I'm concerned, that's a really cool upgrade. Just to quickly touch on magazines again, before we move on. In terms of changes and updates and compatibility, the older mags are compatible with the Orion, but they will absolutely be less gas efficient. Now, I've had a bit of a chat to Rowan from RPM about this, and he reckons there's probably like 3 or 4 different versions of magazines up until we got to the Orion. And I'm just gonna kind of hopefully show you here. The main difference, or the easiest way you can see it, I'm just trying to make sure you can see that, is the gas seals at the top of the magazines are all very slightly different. And what that means is, like, one of the oldest mags I have, which I think it's that one, if I put that in the Orion, it just doesn't work. Whereas one of these other mags, which is more recent style, it works just fine. It just, it's not as good of a gas seal, so less performance, less efficient with that gas. Going the other way, you can absolutely take an Orion mag and you can go and put that into your Evo, you can put it into your Shark if you happen to have those, and it will absolutely work. So if you've got mates that have those and you're sharing magazines and all that sort of stuff, that will work hands down. Just don't be surprised if one of those older ones cause your blaster just not to feed properly. Now, in terms of performance, you're probably wondering, if you're gonna spend money on this, what can you expect? Whether, in terms of FPS or whatever. So I've gone away and done some chrono work using X-Force Black Label gels. So these ones, and some Ozgel Elites or Ultra Elites as well. So I've done that because different fields allow different gels, and depending on what you're running, etc. So I'll put those results up in a second, but I've also, for reference, been using this gas here. So this is the Puff Dino green gas for all those gels and tests. So first up to the side, I will show the Ozgel Ultra Elites. Now, if I remember correctly, there's about 13 or 14 gels in there. And you can see how consistent that is or not, depending on your preferences and standards. And then to the other side is the black labels from X-Force. So those black labels, they're pretty much AKAs. So if you have those or any similar brands, you should probably expect some similar performance. Now, looking at these results, the black labels do perform a little bit less, like less FPS, but that's to be expected. They are softer and tend to be a little bit smaller than those Ultra Elites. And also keeping in mind, like if you use those smaller gels, you will fit more into the magazine. With the Elites, I was finding I was getting about 13 gels in there because they are kind of big and quite solid, so you can't kind of squeeze too many in there. Whereas with the black labels, I think you can get up to about 16 if you kind of push your luck as well. Now, in terms of other gels, I have actually run Ozgel glows through this. It wasn't shattering them or splitting them or anything like that. So that's pretty cool. In terms of actually getting that set up to work properly is a whole separate conversation. But what that does show is softer gels can absolutely be run through this pistol. Whether you need to make changes to the hop up or whatever else is a different conversation, but just keep that in mind, if you have those gels at hand as well. And let's talk about compatibility for a second, right? Because if you're a tinkerer or you kind of got a build plan or whatever else, you probably want to know, how does this fit with parts and all that sort of stuff. First and foremost, the Stormbreaker, RPM, Poseidon Stormbreaker, absolutely, out of the box, the Orion will run it. Okay, there's no issues with it whatsoever. The thing just to keep in mind though is I think depending on like the package you've purchased or are about to purchase, there is like a version when you buy this that comes pre-installed with the magazine, which is what I did. So I think this uses the older style mag lips. It's still very efficient. It would probably be interesting to see how it goes if you took the Orion lips and put them on there. So keep that in mind. And one change I had to make was I just had to unwind the knocker valve a little bit just to pull it back towards the hammer on the Orion, because that is sitting slightly differently to where it's sat with the Evos and that sort of thing. Other than that, honestly, that runs like a dream. That's really good. So if you're looking at doing that, it works. Off the shelf, no problems. In terms of holsters, now I only have one holster that I can check this with, which for me is a T-Rex Arms Ragnarok holster. So I ran my P1 in that, I ran the Evo in it, and this fits as well. Now, my suggestion, if you're looking to get a holster or if you currently have one, is what you're really looking for is something that is actually P80 compatible, because like for the most part, the form factor of this is still a P80. So check for that, check that it fits, and ideally get one that is actually adjustable. But yes, it can fit into holsters if you look. In terms of the RMR plate and the optics that you can mount, so the plate, firstly, that is the one from Poseidon, right? So it's actually available from RPM, 30 bucks, goes straight on in like, you could probably install it in less than a minute. I've got a video that I'll link to, it's like an Instagram video or whatever, but the longest time it took me to figure that out was literally just what screw goes where. So it goes straight on, no dramas. The plate itself has like 8 or 10 holes, I don't know, like all these different cutouts for different shapes, which I assume would be like your Trigicon, your Leopold, your Sig shape, whatever else is out there, probably Hollow Sun and whatnot. So I'm pretty confident that if you're looking to get a rear-mounted optic, whether it's real or a knockoff, they're probably all going to fit. I intend to get a Leopold Delta Point, so when I do that, I'll update and say, let you know if it fits or not. But yeah, that's all good to go, and the plate's 30 bucks. It's pretty cheap, it's easy to put on. All right, last one is barrel accessories. So out of the box, you cannot take your pistol and go and put a tracer unit or a suppressor on there, because this barrel is not threaded. It doesn't have an internal thread, it doesn't have an external thread. It's been my pet peeve from the start of kind of the Poseidon products, because even the Evo and the Shark are the same as well. Now, I'm having ongoing conversations with RPM about this just to solve it, because essentially where there's a balance that you need to strike is you want to make sure it's still a strong barrel, and you want to make sure it doesn't impede the way that hop up works. That said, I do have a DIY hacked barrel that does work. I'm not going to go into details of how that works just yet, because I think there's better ways to do this, right? But that is a P1 threaded barrel. It's been modified. That does work. I can mount a tracer to the pistol as well. So there are options. If you're thinking about doing it, I would probably encourage you to wait, because I suspect that if RPM and Poseidon solve it, it'll be done in probably a better way that makes it easier or better to use with tracer units and suppressors, if that makes sense. But you do you, right? That's the information I'm going to give you on that. All right, issues. So firstly, performance-wise, consistency-wise, reliability-wise, no problems whatsoever with this pistol. Had a really good time. And my comparison point, of course, again, is the Evo. And I had P1s, but let's not talk about that. So Evo, I put thousands and thousands of rounds through. Not a single issue ever popped up. With this, however, after a few hundred rounds, I did notice it started slicing gels. And I didn't realize why until later on. I pulled the pistol apart, and that little rubber loading arm that I've shown you previously had actually fallen off. And I didn't know about it. Like, I had no idea it happened, so I don't know where the part went or anything like that. But without that rubber loading arm, it's just slicing gels in half because it's not working properly. Contacted RPM. They offered to either mail the part to me for my convenience, so I could just glue it back on, or I could just come in and see them. So I went in and saw them. 5 minutes later, solved, fixed, done. And since then, that thing is not coming off. Like, it is clearly stuck on permanently. It's not going to be coming off anytime soon. So I don't know if that's a batch issue or kind of I got unlucky, but just keep in mind that that is something I experienced. And if it happens to you, just contact them. No questions asked, it was fixed immediately. So that's pretty cool. Now, look, I can't tell you whether this is the pistol for you, right? I can't tell you whether you should go and get one, but you should. But what I can do is I can talk to you about the price point of these and compare them to what else is on the market, and you can kind of come to those conclusions yourself. Now, firstly, this here, the Orion 2, again, without the RMR on there, out of the box, straight from the shop, that is $359, $359. The Orion 3, the slightly longer one, longer in a barrel, that one is $389, right? Now, that price point puts it right in the midst of WeTechs, right? Like WeTech Glock style pistols. If you go and browse, other brands and whatnot, you will see that is exactly where that price point is. Where the big difference is, though, is that this pistol is already coming with quite a few of the upgrades and changes that one might make to their WeTech pistol once they have it. So that's kind of crazy, right? Like, this is a Gucci Glock out of the box, runs freaking awesome, to be honest. It's reliable. You will have a blast with it. It comes with an RMR cut, so if you want to put an optic on there, you can. It has that anti-freeze technology, or that ice pick tech. It has the built-in adjustable hop-up, and it has those rubberized components specifically for gel ball. The WeTechs don't have that, not to my knowledge. So, that's, to me, that's pretty clear cut. Unless, you are looking for a Glock replica, this is not that. So, that is what it is. If you want a Gucci Glock, this is probably it. The other comparison point is this was the original model, the Evos and the Sharks. So they came out last year. The problem that RPM and Poseidon have created for themselves is these are still in stock, and these are available at $549. So you're talking about $190 difference between the two models, but this is the new and updated version. It's more gas efficient, and it has the RMR cutout. Why on earth would you not just buy that instead? The advice I would give to myself if I didn't have these pistols would be buy this. Like, don't muck around with the other ones, don't muck around with other Glocks, buy this, hands down. It is the most fun pistol I've used, and you can just run this all day and have a good time. Keep in mind, like, I'm just a guy on the internet. You don't have to trust what I'm saying. I'm not going to argue with you, but I don't understand why you would buy another. If you were just going to get a Glock and then upgrade it to be Gucci, just start with that thing, right? It's already good to go off the bat. Now, if you're keen on getting one of these, or you want to go and check them out, in terms of availability, these are available straight from RPM Tech Shop online, and you can also get them from X-Force Tactical. I will put some links below so you can kind of have a look at it. I don't earn a commission or get paid for those links. If you click those links, it just lets me see what you're interested in so I can keep making content for you, right? So I'll drop those below and you can check it out. If you see me on the field, like I'm playing around in Southeast Queensland a bit, so if you see me on the field, 90% chance I probably have this on me. So if you want to come and have a tinker or whatever, by all means, come and chat and you can, have a play with that as well. So hit me up. Look, hopefully that is more than enough for you to kind of get an idea of whether these pistols are worth it or not, or answered a few questions for you. If you have any more questions, let me know below. I'll, get to those as soon as I can. And like I said, I am doing a giveaway on these Poseidon barrels. So that will come when I do a review and install video on those. So just make sure you subscribe, follow me on Instagram so you can actually see when that information drops. Catch you later.